Hi there. We're back in Wyoming for another episode of Chapter 1. This is episode 3. The last episode we talked about passion for fishing. That was pretty fun. And oh, by the way, in that episode, you can look at the description and you can pull down a copy of the Detroit News. I forgot to mention that, but anyway. Oh, sure, the wind picks up now. Hopefully, you can hear me okay. This episode, we're going to talk about young teenager-ish, all the things that I was involved. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the things I was involved with, but I'll give you a snapshot of one particular, say, category that I was involved with. And let's get into the story. And uh, so when I was 13, maybe, well, really before that, uh, I think maybe I was 11 or 11, maybe. Um, I got into this stealing cars thing, and I'm not too proud of it. It's just a bad part of my history as a child, and gosh, who would ever thought that a youngster like that would be doing those kind of things? But anyway, um, I never really stole them to sell them or anything like that. I was just joyriding as a kid. And this took place in the 70s. Um, but I'll tell you how I did it. So, my mom, like I told you before in a previous episode, she was a Methodist and she would go to church on Sundays, and it was optional for us kids to go. And I liked to go. I was the only one that went with her on a lot of different times, and I got some alone time with mom. It was great. But when we'd get there, mom would get there extremely early, and she would want to sing in the choir. It was all women's choir. And so she'd bring me up into the women's area where they practiced and stuff. And then they would go and get in the congregation and sing. And they would do all their songs before, do a test run of their songs, rehearse. And so she'd leave me alone and say, okay, I want you in the upper balcony so I could see you. Okay, mom. So she would go off singing, and she'd never look for me. And so it gave me a bunch of time to come up with some creative mischief. So what I was doing was I'd go up to the women's locker area, and they'd have all their purses on hooks. And I would go in all those purses and find a set of keys. And I would go outside and in the parking lot, and I could hear this church service starting, and I could I knew by the shape of the keys, and if it had GM on it, I knew what that meant. So I would go find a car and open it up and take off in it, and I'd have the best time. I would take off, and I would just make darn sure that I wasn't late getting back, and I'd hit curbs and everything else. But I was just learning how to drive. But oh my gosh, not a good picture, not at all good. And I'm so surprised I didn't get caught because I did this a bunch of times and I never got caught. Well, I did this many times over and over. And I remember this one time I went through the purses, and I was actually looking for a foreign set of keys because I wanted to learn how to drive a stick. I hadn't drove a stick yet. They were all automatics. So I'm digging through them. Well, I'm digging a little further in the purse. I start seeing money everywhere. So I'm like, oh, they won't miss some of that. So I start taking money out of all these purses, fill my pockets, grab a set of keys, and go. And I did this quite a few Sundays. I mean, I'd even do it in the winter. And when I'm driving, I would learn how to drive sideways before I learned how to drive correctly straight, because they're all rear wheel drive and they all fishtail really good. So I really learned how to fishtail uh, before I even learned how to drive correctly. So, but I remember this one time that was it stuck, and I was going through the purses, and for some reason there was a lot of money in the purses that day. And I started going through them, and I'd take like half the money and shove it in my pockets. And I found a set of keys. I was happy as all get out. So I started heading out of the church, because this was all upstairs. And I took one step downstairs, and I heard this voice say, "Tracy, stop!" And it scared the crap out of me. And I look around, there's no one there. Church service is just getting started. And it stopped me dead in my tracks. And I believe that I recognized the voice. And I didn't want to believe that. I didn't want to believe it was him, but it was his house. But as a kid, I didn't really put that connection together, that it was his house and it was him, and he was correcting me. I didn't get that. All I got was I was scared, thinking I was going to get caught. So I ran back up in there, and I started putting money back in all the purses. I don't remember how much I took out of each purse. So somebody got extra, somebody didn't get enough, or, I just split it. And I was so shook up over the whole thing, I forgot what purse I got the keys out of. So I just threw it on the ground. I figured somebody would pick it up and say, "Hey, whose keys are these?" And I went and sat down in the service. And I did have guilt. And I had some shame going on. I didn't feel good about myself. And I felt like I had been adjusted. By whom, I wasn't sure. I felt like I was disciplined. That's a good word for it. So, we end up going home that day and everything. And, well, that was the last time I ever took a car. And, but all the other categories, I kind of kept doing the motion with them. I didn't like them. I didn't like it at all, what I was doing. As a matter of fact, time went on a little bit, and I was moving from middle school to high school. And the high school there in Detroit was no joke. There was 3,500 kids, all kinds of, you can imagine in Detroit, all kinds of bad behaviors, and it was just a rough school. And I showed up for school, and the word was out on the street that my reputation preceded me, let's say. And the older kids that ruled the roost there in the high school didn't want anything to do with me, and wanted to make sure that they made it known that I was not welcome at that school. And how'd they do that? So every night after school, they'd figure out which one was my bike, and they would find me, beat me up, and put their foot through spokes and everything else on my bicycle, and I'd have to walk it home all beat up that night. It was a long ways from home. Mom would ask what happened, and I said, "Oh, these kids beat me up at school, Mom." And I didn't tell her why or anything. I just said it's a rough school. And that happened half a dozen times maybe. And the last time they did my bike in, they just beat the tar out of it. And I didn't even bring it home, and I just left it at the school, and it was all in pieces. And I got beat up pretty good. I tried to defend myself, but I wasn't a fighter. And I was one of those guys that liked to fly and not fight. And sheesh, what a mess. So I walked to school, forced to go to school. Hated it, just hated that school. I hated what I had become, and I wanted to stop. I just wanted it to stop. And that day that I was just hitting rock bottom, I was waiting after school, because if I waited long enough, the kids would lose interest and leave me alone. I was alone. All my buddies that hung out with me when I was doing all these bad things, oh, they loved it. I had bunches of buddies around me all the time. And as soon as I started slowing down, or the big kids found out about me, they were targets too, so they quit hanging around me. But Mom shows up, drives into the back of the school there and the parking lot. I'm like, oh, I can't believe Mom's here. That old 72 Chevy Impala, green, that thing just saved the day. And so I came out of school as soon as she was in the parking lot. I knew she was looking for me. And I came out of the school and jumped in the car, and she says, "You okay?" And I said, "Oh yeah, thanks for picking me up." And she said, "I've been worried about you. I want you to know your dad and I talked the other day, and we've decided to move to Colorado." And I'm like, "You're kidding." And she said, "No, back up a little bit, my mom's family, whole family is from Colorado, and they had homesteaded early 1900s out by Brush, and they had a big farm out there and stuff. But we came out on vacation every year, and that was the only vacation we ever took, was to come see Mom's parents and Mom's family out here in Colorado." So to me, it was like we were going on vacation forever. And I said, "Well, we're going to Colorado then?" And she said, "Yeah, we put the house up for sale today and it sold." I'm like, "How'd that happen? I didn't even know it was for sale." And she said, "Well, I met with a realtor, we discussed price, and the realtor bought it. So we're taking off." I'm like, "So I don't have to come back to this school ever?" And she said, "Never." And I'm like, oh, I still didn't think at that very moment there is a God. I didn't go there. I just thought it was luck. And so I'm like, "Oh, Mom, I'm the happiest kid around. Let's go." So we packed up the car and put Dad's motorcycle in the back of the 72 Chevy, and I drove it. I had a full-blown license at 14. I drove it all the way out, pulling a trailer with a motorcycle. It was really the happiest time of my childhood, other than catching rats, catching big catfish, northern pike. Man, that was good stuff. But I was the happiest kid around. I thought really that this was going to bring me, it was going to set me free, kind of, from all of that. And I got an opportunity to start over. How many kids get that? So we made it out to Colorado, and I saw that I started making good choices. I met a guy that trapped out, out by the high school and in the winter, and he taught me the trade, and I did that. I know some of you probably don't want to hear that, but I did. I trapped, and I really enjoyed it. I love the outdoors, as you can tell, right? It never left me, believe me. It only has gotten worse throughout my life. But see, some of the behaviors I learned as a youngster started exasperating as I got older. I didn't like some things about me, but I did like some things about me. I hunted and I fished and I did a lot of things. I didn't do any of the other categories that I was in. I didn't do that anymore. And I didn't need to, didn't want to. Now, Colorado, where I went to high school, was good for me and had some good teachers. As a matter of fact, one of the teachers that I had became my boss indirectly in my career, which was kind of weird but kind of fun. But I think I want to leave it here, because the next one I'm going to talk about high school graduation and a couple stories there, and then why I chose Marine Corps to go into, and what happened there. That's in the next episode. So I'd like to leave this one here. I'm trying to think if I left anything out. I think the takeaway on this one is these are the early years of my 1.0 and how they started developing with an alcoholic parent, with lots of time on my hands, no leadership. I think more abuse than leadership, right? So I think this is what's the setup for the next episode. So we'll leave it here. Gotta love Wyoming, even if it is a little chilly tonight, and it's still summertime, and a little windy. I hope the wind doesn't impact the video. So we'll see you. Talk next time.